Hey, well, welcome to the Belgrade Planning Board meeting for November 18th, 2021. In this meeting to order. And we have no applications to review this evening for our agenda. It's strictly ordinance discussions, right? And first on the agenda, or if I'm not mistaken, was subdivision one, is that correct? And was anybody from KV Cog going to help us?
No.
Tonight? Okay.
I'm here to help y'all with that.
Okay, super. And when last we met, we had, I think we had all agreed to, I'm just agreeing to something on the screen here. Language that we wanted in the ordinance, that we had the three things, right? There was the monument discussion and the two other things. I can't recall what they were right now, but we had suggested they'd be put in, right? Was there, what else was next, or what was next to go?
Well, I think we need to go through the public comments we received.
Because we did receive some, and I know, yeah, we have to get those in there.
See if those, deserve any changes or discuss. We should discuss those. We've had some were pretty specific, some so, but.
The 7 acres. I don't think that's a very big change. I mean, that's the size of that wall to the parking lot, That's what they're asking for. And I don't see where that's a big change, and it's really going to be minor. So I would just soon see the 7 acres, just to, because we did actually have a citizen speak up. That would be one thing.
Yeah, and that was.
I don't see where that's a big change.
And I know I was in agreement with that notion. I think George, you wanted to chew on that a little bit.
I did, and I'm okay with it now that I've had a chance to review Mr. Wood's actual written comments and better understand where he's coming from. And as long as the number of lots isn't changing, I'm okay with going from 6 to 7 acres.
Okay. So, and then Rich, did you consider that?
Yeah, I was okay with that.
Okay.
Still
okay, thank you very much.
I mean, Mr. Wood's point is a good one, that allows lots to be 100,000 square feet.
Yes.
And by doing so, they're able to avoid some of the other regulatory requirements, like having to demonstrate that the septic systems aren't going to contaminate each other's well, stuff like that.
So at this point, with that recommendation about going to the 7 acres part, I didn't see any significant downside to that suggestion. I mean, yes, it's a change, but I didn't see it as a problem to go that way. So I know I would be in favor of that, accepting that change too.
Like I said, I'm once I had a chance to think about it and look at the actual draft language,
okay.
I'm okay with that. I just don't like to shoot from the hip. Right.
Thank you. So Sarah, welcome. Do you want a quick catch up of where we are? She's busy. Yeah. Do you want a quick recap of where we are right now? Because we just got started.
Sure, very quickly, want to
Sure. So we had received some public comment on the subdivision ordinance, and we're just reviewing one of those comments right now. And that had to do with having 7 acres. This is on the minor.
On the minor, yes.
Part, rather than 6, which we had originally talked about. So I know the other planning board members have received that comment and thought about it, and at this point there are no objections to
7.
Yep, to 7. So that's where we are with that one.
Thank you.
You're very, very welcome. What was the next or are we going through a page by page? How do folks want to do this, or you want?
He pretty much. Well, first of all, wasn't he have Mr. Minor? He really had one, or did he have more than one?
No, he just had that one comment.
I believe that one. Yeah.
Yeah.
thinking
And I included, he sent us a letter, he followed up with a letter, and I included that letter in your package. And
Thank you.
that was the only point that he wanted to make.
thinking, maybe, I thought George was suggesting, and if he was, I agree that we ought to take Mr. Feinberg's comment and go down to them.
Yeah, he had the most comments and he's the only other individual to put them in writing other than Mr. Wood. So that probably makes sense. So Anthony, do you know what page the change needs to be made that we just discussed and agreed to?
Yeah, so now in the updated package, so on page 6, at George's request, I added in this definition for direct watersheds of a great pond, which, George, you looked at that directly from state law?
That's something that we had already previously discussed and agreed to with Charles. And it comes directly from the model ordinance, but for some reason it was omitted.
Okay, so that is now on page 6.
Okay.
So on page 9, paragraph or section 3, paragraph 4. Now reads total area of subdivided lots no larger than 7 acres.
And so, Anthony, when you read 7, that's on your copy?
That's on the copy. Yes, I'm making the changes and then I'll incorporate them into a master copy.
Okay.
And redistribute that.
Okay. Thank you.
Good. Can I bring something up over on Article 5? Or do you want to go through the public comment first? Because my email messages have been blowing up all week since that public hearing. So I have a list of things that I kind of want to bring up as well.
I would like to get to those things that you want to bring up. I don't want to lose sight of the public comments because we had,
All right, let's do the public comments.
if you don't mind. Yeah. So what were the next public comments?
Well, Mr. Feinstein. He has a whole page full of them.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe Rich did the same thing or maybe others did too, but I went down through the entire list and I separated them out into those that I think his comments have merit and those that for one reason or another either don't rise to the level of needing any change on our part, or it's sort of a misinterpretation of the what's in the draft ordinance. But just by way of example, it's kind of hard to follow his memo, but in 2R, starting at the top under Article 1,
yes.
Substitute unreasonable for significantly. Well, the existing language is unreasonably, so there's no need for a change there. So some of this he just didn't quite get right.
I think he wanted us to put significantly instead of unreasonable.
Substitute unreasonable for significantly,
Or strike.
or strike
unreasonable
unreasonable entirely.
So where is this again?
It's
Article 1.
yeah,
So let's go be back on page. Hang on.
I personally think that's worrying about belly button fuzz.
Yeah.
And even Article 2A, I didn't see the way the beginning, the first one, the way the language is written on the ordinance. I don't think put it this way, it doesn't add anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and then the next item, if we're going to go line by line, H, add wetlands and vernal pools. Well, the existing language is rare and irreplaceable natural areas, which covers both wetlands and vernal pools. It's included in that umbrella term terminology. So there's no need for a change there.
So do you mind if we go back to R? Are we in agreement that, let's see now, that what he brings up about substituting one word for another, that we're not going to do that in this case because of the language that we have is consistent already.
So what he's arguing, I guess, is unreasonable increase in phosphorus versus significant increase in phosphorus. And you know, I don't know what a real difference is unless you're going to start talking statistics, in which case then you're talking about 95%.
Yeah.
Versus, you know, some other lower percentage of confidence.
And we're not built that way.
No, we're not built the way, and the ordinance isn't
Right.
built that way.
Right.
So I don't know. It, you know, at the end of the day, it probably doesn't matter a squat.
Yeah. So I would vote to say, first of all, thank you for the note about this, but I would say that there's no need to change anything we have on that particular item.
Yeah, that was my conclusion too.
Yeah.
He does correctly point out in 5 a typo.
Okay.
Which I captured in my copy, which I flagged, and I can leave with you, Anthony.
Was that, are we on-site inspection now?
We're on Article 1, 5, typo, board shall not hold old.
That's fixed on it.
Yeah, Rich caught that as well.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, so you already got that then.
Thank you. Then let's see now.
And then 8 little I, the comment goes to requiring a soil test pit analysis. Well, that's already required as part of the subsurface wastewater disposal system design.
Okay.
So that's redundant.
And so this is under Article 6, right? So it's redundant. So there's no need to change, no need to include his comments in our ordinance.
I don't think so. The only thing he's got a IE there, no short circuit. And that's a whole different kettle of fish. That's when a septic system or a leach field, because of anomalies in the soils, rather than the wastewater moving fairly uniformly through the soil layer down and laterally, finds like a sand or gravel lens and just goes shooting someplace. But I don't know how we can deal with that. That's a plumbing code issue.
Mhm. Okay.
As you've heard me say many times, the plumbing code has many failings.
Mhm.
But you know, the way when you're basing it on a single soil test pit, there's no way you're going to find a gravel lens or something similar.
So I'm certainly okay by not changing anything as he recommends there.
Then D1, he does
D1.
accurately point out a number of references that are incorrect, cross references to the phosphorus control standards, which I believe Rich has already captured.
That's correct.
So that would be,
and are also in mine, although.
So that's in the corrected copies that you have sitting in front of you.
Yeah. Okay.
excellent. Thank you very
On page-
much.
On page 15.
That there's a second place where that's also the case, down at 25A. What was page 29 in our.
Okay. And, so then all these references that he points out, we've captured, is that correct? So there was the typo, not article, looks like 13, but article 14, that was one line. Then the next one is improper reference to article 12, should be 13. 20 F3 does not make sense, not dealing with, oh, that's not a reference, that's his opinion that it's awkward. But for those references to correctly referencing the articles 14 and 13, are those captured?
I think
Rich?
most, all of them, I'll read it through one more time too. I think we caught most all of the article issues. One of the big things is that in the table of contents, it had like Article 5, Article 6, Article 7, and then the next one said Article 5, Article 6. So we were off by, and there was one article that wasn't in the table of contents. So everything was screwed up.
Yeah.
As a result of that.
Okay. Thank you. So are we down to the line that says page 20, F3 does not make sense, that thing, or not?
Yeah, I believe we are. And, you know, when I read it, I thought it was fine the way it is myself.
20 F3.
Is this
Okay.
page 20 F3?
Yeah.
I had the same comment. Okay, is it?
On page 20 F3.
So on mine, it goes actually spills over onto page 21, I believe. So F starts off with an indication of the type of water supply system to be used in the subdivision. And then 3, talking about when water is to be supplied by private wells. Are we there? Is that where we are? Are we all in the same spot?
Yeah, that's on page 21.
Yes, on page 21 of your correct.
Yep.
On page 21, there is a punctuation error, but I'll just give this to you, Anthony, to quickly
Okay.
go through because I flagged with stickums.
Okay.
Probably already caught it, but
So where are we with this one on this versus?
I think we're on page 21 the version he was working off of was one page different than
Mhm.
the version that we had at the public informational meeting, which is different than the one that Anthony printed out for us.
Yeah.
But anyway, on the old page 21, there was language there. He's suggesting that private roads be required to form a road association, and makes a reference to per statute.
Question mark, question mark.
Yeah.
I don't know if there is a statute that says.
Either do I. And I'm not sure the town's in a position to be requiring that.
If a private road is being built, a requirement to form.
I mean, I understand, well, I don't know, maybe this isn't what he was thinking of, but
I guess.
I know in other places that I've had to deal with, a road, either a road association falls apart or they don't have one. And what do the people do when the road goes to hell? They go to the town and complain.
Right.
And the town says, tough, you know, it's your road.
Right, right,
I mean, that's what the town should say anyway.
right. No, we have had something in our subdivision ordinance that talks about if you are going to build this private road and to build it to town specs, that lays the groundwork for eventually, if it were built to town specs, that if the town wanted to take it over, they could, and it wouldn't be as risky, I suppose.
I mean, the downside of the tough love approach, though, is if you should have to get a fire truck down there.
Right.
Does the town even take over private roads anymore?
Not that I'm aware of. I've been
Even if
told-
they built the spec?
Well, I think what I'm told is the last one was the east-west lane,
Right.
and it passed by one vote at town meeting.
Yep, I was
And,
there.
And those are contentious things that
They are.
some reason, I think the town's not even taking over. I can't say that 100%, but
I totally agree. I think there's real hesitancy to take them on. But nonetheless, I think we have had language in here that talks about if you are going to build a road, we're asking you to build it town specs. You know, but that's just one aspect of this. I don't know where I'm not in favor of having a requirement to form a road association.
because keyword is private.
Right. Right. So you've got private on one side and then a town requiring a private thing to do something. That seems to be at odds to me. I don't know. And
Yeah, 4 lots created, the 2 on each side, and the road is 500 feet long or something. The town requirement to form a road association. 4 lots, doesn't make sense to me.
Well, in East-West Lane, part of the move by the residents there to get the town to accept the road was driven by the fact that their road association fell apart. And among other reasons, there were other reasons too, some of which were kind of bizarre, but so, there'll be pressures like that probably in the future too, but.
so does the board feel similarly to me that I would say to not take this under advisement and not include this comment in any sort of part? Yeah.
I agree.
I agree.
I think it's inappropriate.
I would think so too. Next.
I mean, most are going to form a road association, whether they succeed or fail depends on the individuals in that subdivision, but.
Yep. So next was on his list, we've got 8 little I twice, II needs soil analysis too. He's referencing Article 6, which now might be, I think so, right? On page like 24, starting on 24, and then 8. Where the hell is it? Oh, indication. Is it perhaps under, I'm on page 28 on what Anthony printed for us. I see a number 8. It says an indication of type of sewage disposal to be used in the subdivision. Is there something here where Mr. Feinberg is looking for a soils analysis to be included or some mention of that? Is that, I don't know. I'm kind of reaching on this. I don't know what he's trying to say.
Yeah, we already require it.
Okay, all right. And then 25A, wrong reference to phosphorus control standard. 25A.
I think we've caught that.
Okay, so that's done. Great, thank you. Next, page 31, for any subdivision, for any major subdivision, require a traffic impact. Yes, sir.
Here's a second thought. I guess we're trying to avoid doubles when we say that we don't need soil analysis in there. I just, second thought, so we can consider it. Would having it there as a double will just be like a good reminder, so to speak, a friendly reminder. I'm just saying.
So,
Maybe I don't know if actually in the past have created confusion having in 2 documents the same requirement, or if just mentioning it here, it's almost like a second coat on the wall. Just a thought. It's not.
yeah.
It's not that. We certainly want to make all this paperwork simple for the applicant and for us. So just a second thought, because when this is a lot of paperwork in any ordinance that we have to follow.
It is.
So sometimes having that double disclosure mention it and said, ask this in this other document, and then the other document reference it back to this, but that creates more work altogether, but just a thought.
I guess I'm not following your
You know,
suggestion.
following, we said that, like number 8, you have the good memory to say, well, we already required that. So if we require it, it's because it's prompted in another document.
It's in this document earlier.
Is it
Yeah.
earlier in this document?
Yeah,
Okay,
Yeah.
never mind.
it would be part of the soil test pit analysis that's just standard operating
Standard,
procedure.
Okay, never mind.
But I understand what you're saying, though.
Yeah.
Is it worthwhile to have another mention of it?
Mention of it.
Okay, so I'm no lawyer, so I don't know. My thinking
I
is,
mean, you guys have done this
Yeah.
continuously before. I just don't know if in the past that have been a problem.
Yeah.
Having the reference in two places, the same document.
Yeah.
Yes,
And
or if it's a good thing for the applicant to remember.
others might differ, but my opinion would be simple is good.
Simple,
Right,
okay,
so
good,
just-
sounds good.
Try and go simple. Okay. So that was 8. Then we had 25A, wrong reference to phosphorus control. So do we find
That
that?
was correct.
That was corrected. Thank you. Then page 31 suggests for any major subdivision require traffic impact analysis.
So this comes, what we have in the ordinance comes from the model ordinance. And currently the traffic impact, the requirement for a traffic impact analysis is driven by well, I'll just read it. For subdivisions involving 28 or more parking spaces, like if you had an apartment complex or something like that, or projected to generate more than 100 vehicle trips per day. So pretty good, a big subdivision, a traffic impact analysis prepared by a registered professional engineer, et cetera, is required. And he's suggesting for any major subdivision, which I don't agree with. Whether, you know, how the model ordinance dealt with it is appropriate. I don't have an opinion about, because I don't know of any subdivision that we have in Belgrade that probably generates 100 vehicle trips per day. But I suppose, you know, if we got a subdivision like Gary told us about in Sydney with 100 lots. I suppose, and that's more for when you need a turning lane and things of that nature. So I don't see the, my personal opinion is to stick with what's in the model ordinance.
I would agree. I have one question. Does anybody know what a vehicle trip is? Is that like just leaving, or is it leaving and coming?
Double, yeah.
Is that, it's both?
Expect it's one way, but I don't know.
Okay.
You know, George?
Okay. It may not matter for this discussion. I was just trying to understand it better, like, you know, that's all. So I am good with leaving it as is. And we can be consoled in knowing that if there are larger subdivisions, right? We have language that says if it's projected to generate more than 140 vehicle trips per day, then you do the traffic analysis. So it's not all, but just on those larger ones.
Yeah.
So it's not like it would never be done on a major. It's on the major that's large.
Because a subdivision of 6 house lots is, you know, they shouldn't have to go through a study like that.
It seems silly. Inexpensive. Are we okay to move on to the next one? So I think it's article, what used to be 7, is really now 9, I believe, page 34-ish.
We thought that.
You did, thank you. And next, page 37. This is where he talks about need to reference road associations. I'm not sure, 30R, so 37R, so it's really probably on page 38, stand by. Yeah. So page 38 says R says covenants for mandatory membership in the Lot Owners Association, setting forth the owner's rights, interests, blah, 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 blah. In the Lot Owners Association. Oh, I think he's saying, rather than saying lot owners, it would be road association.
Either that or he's saying both of them. Add two, lot association and road association.
Well, I would agree, because I think we have to have an umbrella statement in there rather than one or the other,
Yeah.
because we don't know that they're always going to be road associations, right?
Right.
So does it make sense to say something like covenants for mandatory membership in the Lot Owners Association or
Lot or road owners.
Okay, lot or road owners association.
And, you know, if we had a condo development, usually those have condo associations, which would be the equivalent of lot associations.
So we're taking that under advisement and including something. Anthony, did you?
I got it.
Thank you. Next was page 38, which is probably 39, D1. It starts off a phosphorus impact analysis. He's saying, consider standard for phosphorus allocation during construction and for the life of the project. Article something, something. Shall prevent soil erosion. Oh.
If I understand this correctly, he's suggesting that during the construction phase, in addition to soil erosion control plan that prevents soil erosion at that stage of the project, that there also be a phosphorus analysis. At least that's the way I interpret it.
That's what I'm thinking too, but keep me honest here. We're under 6, right? Which is called required submissions for which a waiver may be granted. Right? So are we saying that this gentleman would like to have
Something we don't even require.
waived? Because it doesn't make sense to me. I think what he's intending to is to try to make sure that there is proper language that would prevent soil erosion, therefore prevent phosphorus transportation, right? But maybe I'm wrong. I don't think he's intending to say that could be something that could be waived, which is where we are.
I think that you're right about that, Peter.
Okay. I think his intent is about prevention of something.
That's right.
And this part is about how you can get waived, something waived.
You may have gotten a little lost of the heading that was
Right.
6 paragraphs above.
Yeah.
Do others agree? I mean, I don't want to.
I personally think, although a waiver could be granted, I can't imagine there are going to be too many times where a soil erosion control plan is not going to be required by us.
Right.
And that during the construction phase, not over the lifespan of the entire project, but
Right.
to me seems adequate. In terms of controlling phosphorus runoff at that point in the project.
Right, in terms of controlling it, rather than something that could be waived. So I think I understand what he's trying to say, but I think that's probably not the right spot for anything like that.
Yeah.
So, all right. Are we good to go on to the next one when he has a paragraph that talks about strongly suggests that peer review of technological aspects be authorized, be paid for by the applicant, authorized by the planning board as a requirement. I had highlighted that one. That was a big, I think, point that he was trying to make.
Don't we have the ability to, under this thing, to hire somebody and build the
Yeah,
developer?
we already have that in the ordinance. The fee structure is such that they have to pay into an escrow account so that we can do that very thing.
Yep, exactly.
So
We
that
had a
that's,
discussion on that at the actual hearing.
Right.
well, at the time, I know, at least for speaking for myself, I couldn't remember where it was. I just remember it was somewhere. Just like it is in the commercial development review ordinance. But if you go to the beginning of the major subdivision section, and you look at the fees that have to be paid per lot, there's also a payment that has to go into an escrow account. And that authorizes us to expend it for technical assistance if we should require it.
Yes, and forcing them to do a peer review where you're just taking one engineer against another engineer. Who are you gonna pick? And if you pick that one, it's not gonna make you liable. If the other one's right. Yeah, so now you're pitting, you know, we already have ordinances that pit neighbor against neighbor. Now you're gonna pit engineer against engineer. And
Well, I mean, in the real world though, Craig, that happens all the time. And it's no different than when we bring in our town attorney and the applicant has an attorney. You know, they're going to agree on some things and they're going to disagree on others. That attorney is working for us. They're paid to err on the side of the town, not on the side of the applicant. The applicant's attorney's paid to err on the side of the applicant, not to look out for the town's interests.
Yeah, that is true.
So it's really no different.
you know, it is. Engineer, there's a lot different than attorneys. Attorneys are attorneys. I mean, to require an applicant to hire a second engineer is just wrong. Just not acceptable. We already have it. That little in the beginning that George was just talking about.
Yeah.
That's all we need.
And I agree. I think we're in agreement that having it in the front part that we have, you know, allows us to do it, but it does not require it.
No, it doesn't require us to do
I
it.
think that's our common ground on that. Right? So are we good on that?
I am.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree.
Yep.
That we shouldn't be requiring it in all cases.
Agreed.
In fact, it'll be the rare circumstance, I believe, where that would be necessary.
yep.
I mean, look, we have that authority under the commercial development review ordinance, and at least since I've been on board, we've never used it.
Right. So maybe for Mr. Feinberg, who took time to make his notes, if he were to ask the town how we felt about this, you know, I had written down paid for by the applicant. That was one of the points he had made, in addition to the requirement part. I think we can say, you know, that what we already have in the ordinance going into the escrow account that the applicant pays meets this need right here, right? It's not the town paying it in this case, right?
I mean, I can understand that he didn't find it.
Right,
Because it took me a while to find it.
right. So in this spirit of being transparent, I think that part is being met, and I hope that he can know that. So are we okay to move along then, to the next item? Next one we have here says Article 10, which is probably Article 12. Query. He wrote, is the CEO qualified to inspect all the subs and compliances required? Can the CEO hire a third party? And C1B, blah, 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 blah. So stand by, where are we? So
On page 43.
thank you. Is the CEO qualified to inspect all the subs?
Yeah, this is the inspections and enforcement article. I mean, it's sort of a general statement. I don't know that it is reacting to any specific language I mean, when I read that, my first thought is, if the CEO is not qualified to inspect the project while it's under construction, we got the wrong person for code enforcement officer. And in terms of hiring a third party, I don't, for a subdivision, I don't see why that would ever be necessary myself.
Yeah.
If this was an ordinance, a true building code, where you have the code enforcement officer needs expertise in electrical wiring, plumbing, all that stuff, and some don't have that would be different, where you bring in, say, the town would hire for a large, say, condo development, hire a licensed electrician doing its help the code enforcement inspection. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about inspecting the ditching, inspecting the road construction, any utilities are built, that kind of thing, erosion control.
And I would agree. And my thinking is that the core certification for a CEO would cover those sorts of things. Am I mistaken on that?
That covers it, but doesn't make me totally an expert on all these. But my thought is that most of these issues that we're talking about, there's someone at a state agency that could assist the code officer either by asking questions or actually coming out to site where there's erosion control. I suspect DOT has people that I don't know,
Right.
you know, floodplain management, stuff like that. Usually somebody that's there for assistance to municipalities.
Anthony, do you know if CEOs talk to one another?
Oh, definitely.
So is that another, I mean, that's kind of like.
Yeah, there's that. I mean, then there, as Rich said, there's not, in addition to state agencies like the DEP on the, you know, our soil erosion control, for example, performance standards based on their best management practices. Well, there are numerous experts at DEP on that document and how to implement it.
Right.
Likewise, there's a soil and water conservation district. For the kinds of things that are captured and are part of the development of a subdivision, or most subdivisions anyway, where, you know, it's a chunk of land being divided up into lots and being sold with the development of a road down the middle. The code enforcement officer should be plenty qualified to be able to do all the inspections needed.
I would expect so as well.
Well, and to speak to George's point, just my own personal experience is anytime I've reached out, despite the perception or misperception of state government employees, whenever I've reached out to someone, they've been accessible and helpful.
It's very encouraging. Thank you. Yeah. I've noticed the same thing, of course, but I work with a lot of them. So yeah. I know how they can be. So are we okay that, I mean, I respect and admire the fact that he took time to make these comments, but I think we're covered on this particular thing that he wrote about, that the CEO is qualified to inspect the types of things that we're talking about in subdivisions. And CEOs can resort to discussing or networking with other professionals, whether it's state governmental officials or other CEOs. I'm not sure that there's any other language that we need to put in there. I just want to address that point, that's all. Okay. Next was 1B. Who is the inspecting official? Page 42. So 1B.
That would be the CEO.
Yeah. So,
I mean, I suppose if you wanted, we could change inspecting official to code enforcement officer for clarity, but that's, I agree with Anthony.
right. This language came from a state model ordinance, correct? So in the interest of keeping it the same, then
Yeah.
I would say let's keep it the same.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
In answer to Mr. Feinstein, that would be the CEO. Next was article, looks like 11, which is probably 13. 3 reiterates no erosion, dovetails with no phosphorus allocation concept.
That's zero tolerance he's talking about. Is that what he's talking about? Zero phosphorus.
That may be part of that one, Craig. And then he also goes on to say something about the need for, oh wait, before we get there. Yeah, because he says no phosphorus allocation concept. And we talked about that at length, right?
Yeah, that's impossible.
As soon as you move an ounce of dirt, there's a possibility of phosphorus levels. I don't know how you get to no phosphorus.
Yeah.
It seems,
I mean, the reality is there are low concentrations of phosphorus that come from undisturbed woodlands with stormwater runoff. You know, there's been plenty of research done in the White Mountains that prove that. The experimental forest over there at Hubbard Brook.
so I don't know if the taxpayers, some who are maybe have expectations that are not realistic, that we could try to have no phosphorus
Well,
whatsoever.
I think as we discussed that at the public informational meeting, it seemed to me that many of the people there understood that zero discharge is not a possibility.
It's not a dereliction of our duty
No, it's
to
just-
do this. It's
It's
an impossibility,
a matter of hydrology.
right?
On that same page,
Sure.
I know Rich has captured this, I'm pretty sure he has, but that table for buffers from streams has an omission in it, just so everybody's aware of it. The minimum buffer is supposed to be 25 feet.
So
that chart on the corrected copy, page 50. For a land slope of 0%, it should be 25 feet.
Yeah, 0% should be 25 feet.
Gotcha.
That table comes from the existing ordinance, our current ordinance, and for whatever reason, the 25 got omitted.
Thank you. And thank you, George. And then are we down to page 52B2?
Yeah.
No?
I personally don't think we can should some higher number on there. If it's too high, people aren't gonna vote for it.
Earlier, when we first discussed this back in the summer, I wanted to see what other towns were doing. I think I looked at Reedfield, Vassalboro, China. I think I tried to find Oakland's, but couldn't because their website's basically just one big advertisement. Maybe Sydney, but we're right in the middle. Most towns are between 10 and 15%, or there's a couple around 5%. So we're right in the middle of the pack. And I agree with Rich. I don't see any real reason to change it.
And what was that?
That's actually in paragraph 4 at the bottom of page 53.
Thank you, because I was looking for the exact number too.
I mean, I'm guessing Mr. Feinberg is coming from the perspective of that goal in the comprehensive, well, maybe not the comprehensive plan, but the general concept that open space, discharges less phosphorus than developed land. But I'm not sure this is the way to deal with that. Or it would make much difference.
Mm-hmm.
Good with 10%.
Yeah. Right, me too. I'm not in favor of necessarily changing it for anything, for any reason. Unless there's some compelling argument other than just desire. I mean, if, you know, if someone said, oh, we could accomplish this by doing this, that might be worth consideration. But at this point, I would say let's keep it as is. You okay with that? Keep as is? Okay. And then the next to last thing, page 53(2). He says 1320 feet, square feet. Need an explanation of how this works. So
that's paragraph 2 at the bottom of page 54.
thank you, Anthony.
My suggestion, Peter, on this one is changing both number 1 and number 2, which is 250 feet and 1320 feet, add in horizontal distance. Because for one thing, I think it clarifies we're talking about a distance away from. But secondly, if you're on a 50% slope, horizontal distance, you're not 250 feet away. If you measure up the hill, 250 feet.
Right.
And with shoreline zoning and other NERPA things, we talk about horizontal distance, and I would add those 2 words in there.
Okay, so therefore on page 54 under C1 and 2 to include horizontal, I just say horizontal distance, so 250 feet horizontal distance of the following areas, you know, etc. Or do those words horizontal distance go somewhere?
Oh, I think it maybe reads better if we say 250 feet of horizontal difference of the following areas identified.
Okay.
Does that reflect what you're
Say
meaning?
that again?
Sure. 250 feet of horizontal distance of the following areas identified in that.
I think it's okay.
You're good with that?
Yeah,
Because horizontal distance is the key thing.
Yeah.
Right.
that's fine.
Yep. So the same words for 2. So 13 or 20 feet of horizontal distance of an area. Okay. Next, he wrote down, need all the blanks to be filled in on the cluster development to be able to respond.
So this is on page 1661. And there, he's correct. We never got back to this with Charles. I think it just fell through the cracks. And we're talking section 13 A2.
Page 61.
Yeah, sorry.
What page is it under?
It's on page 61.
69.
Yeah,
And 13 starts up with cluster.
sorry, I'm still working off of the version that went to the public informational meeting.
Yeah, so it's the last paragraph on page 61 of the revised copy.
Right. And my suggestion is this, rather than, first off, the premise of this is that subdivisions of a certain size should be required to be developed as a cluster development. There's nothing wrong with cluster developments, but I don't think we should be requiring them, regardless of what standards we come up with for when we require them, based on filling in the blanks. And so my suggestion is very much along the lines of the way the current ordinance is written, that all major subdivisions may be designed as a cluster development according to the following standards. And so that gets rid of much of that paragraph.
Yep.
Right there. And then, but well, why don't we discuss that, because maybe others feel differently. I just, you know, we've had language to allow cluster developments since 1988. We have none. So there's, you know, the market just isn't there, as best I can tell, for cluster developments in this part of the state. I mean, there's certainly some in southern Maine.
And they're saying that we should give the owner the option.
Yeah, they can do it, but we're not requiring them to do it.
I'm good with that.
And what was the language you suggested? Jordan?
So I would do away with everything from the word on the first line where down through districts on the fourth line. And I would change shall to may. And I would limit this to major subdivisions. So it would read all major subdivisions may be designed as a cluster development according to the following standards. And then I would delete the rest of that paragraph. Now, I suppose, you know, unless you want to just have it allow minor subdivisions as well to do cluster development, and then we shouldn't add the word major.
So kind of define for me a cluster development. So what's,
Well, I can do it in general terms, Craig, but it's basically a development where you allow a denser development of the actual house lots, smaller lots, so that you can protect more open space or have more common space, like for recreation.
Still need the same amount of lot area for the 4 or 5 houses. But you can put the 4 or 5 houses on smaller lots and then leave
Right. Right.
I don't think that's necessary for minor.
What's that?
I don't think it's necessary for minor.
Okay.
So if we left it with the wording that George suggested about using for major, would that be okay?
I think so, because of a minor, say you had a 4-acre lot and you broke off 3 lots, you could still only put 4 places on there. So could you do 4 multi-homes, you know, duplexes? Or you getting into something different?
No, because each duplex would be considered 2.
I don't see where it's necessary in the minor.
Okay.
So by keeping the word that you suggested about
Adding
having this
major,
major,
all major subdivisions.
I like that. I think that's a good approach. It gives the landowner or the developer that opportunity if they so desire, and if it fits their business model. Are we all good with that? Yeah, great. Anthony.
I got it.
And the second part, his comments on the following page in B3, there's a blank, and rather than section, the reference should be paragraph 5, which is just below. So according to the calculations in paragraph 5 below is my suggestion.
So that's in paragraph 3 right now?
Yes.
Okay.
And it's making a reference or directing people to paragraph 5 just below it.
Okay.
Because if you look at paragraph 5, that's where the calculation is done.
So does that address all of Mr. Feinberg's comments?
I believe so.
Yeah.
He did send me something additionally after he sent this to you guys. And after the blank on the cluster development paragraph. It says street lighting is too discretionary. But he doesn't cite it, chapter or verse.
Street lighting, okay. Hang
Could
on.
you say that again, Anthony?
He said street lighting is too discretionary.
So
I think
street
that's
lighting.
on the bottom wires.
What page?
He did not cite a page or a chapter or verse. So
No, right, I heard that part, but I was thinking we could find it.
Oh,
General.
this down here, I didn't even see that.
Is at the bottom of page 67 now. There's a paragraph 3 at the bottom of page 67 that says street names, signs, and the lighting.
The,
Oh, at the bottom of that paragraph on page 68, it says street lighting shall be installed as approved by the board. So I think that's what he means by street lighting is too discretionary.
mhm. I see his point. I don't have a good solution right off the top of my head.
Every situation is so different. We're not talking New Jersey in the suburbs of New Jersey. We're talking in rural Belgrade.
Yeah,
I'm fine with what we have.
I agree with Craig. Having grown up in a New Jersey subdivision, I would hate to see subdivisions in Belgrade look like those.
Right.
I was just in New York a week ago, and I can feel it too.
But, you know, his point about it being vague and, you know, no specificity. And, you know, when you have some language like that, it lends, I'm not sure in this case, but in other, potentially in other cases, it could lead to very inconsistent decision making.
Mhm.
But I, like you, Peter,
I don't have that.
if it, you know, I mean, this came from the model ordinance, so I don't know. They don't have a standard for it. I'm certainly not qualified to come up with one.
Same.
And I mean, in my subdivision, there's no light.
Yeah,
Um,
and if I lived there, that's the way I would want it.
Yeah.
Precisely.
The only place that you need lighting is where you have criminality and thieves and that kind of stuff. You need a lot of lighting.
Well, the residents have lighting, but the streets themselves.
Yeah,
My folks live in the hills of the Upper Rico, and they have in the street, they have, it's just worse than that.
I mean,
situation.
the only thing I could think of is if we had a large subdivision with a lot of traffic coming out of it, we might want to require a street light where it intersects with the public road.
Other than that, I wouldn't want to contribute to more light pollution,
Right.
really. So I'm good with, I appreciate his comments, but I'm good with keeping it as is. Is everybody?
Yep.
Okay.
And he continues, and now I'm going to refer you to the bottom of page 72. 3 small i's there. And there's a reference to the municipal engineer. Yes, we don't have a municipal engineer. Of course, we do not.
Right.
All of the design standards and specs should be reviewed and approved by the municipal engineer. So I assume this is also part of the template. And so it may, since we don't have a municipal engineer, we may want to strike it or just leave it in there on the off chance that at some point, like we have a contract with the town plumber, that at some point we might have a town engineer.
I'm 50.
That seems remote, but
Yeah, I'm 50-50 on that. It's kind of like, yeah, we don't have one, strike it, but what if we did get one, which I don't anticipate. for a
Right.
while, but then you might want to add it in. If it's already there, I think it's fine.
Well, if this subdivision lasts 25 years like the last one, you know, we might have an engineer by then, but I'm fine either way.
so then a couple of last references to what was Article 13.
Now it's probably
Article
15 maybe?
Yeah.
16, because we added an article, Peter.
Oh,
We didn't add one, but there was one totally missing.
Yeah.
So as we get going, we get to be 3 chapters ahead.
gotcha. Okay.
And there's a, he said in 1C. So it might be Article 15. Yes, it is. It's Article 15. It says in 1C, so we're on page 89. The financial institution needs to be qualified somehow. Do not want any undercapitalized banks. Not sure how to set this standard.
I don't have page 89.
Oh, you don't? There you go. Okay. I want it back.
We go to 79.
No.
Oh, there it is.
So that's the irrevocable letter of credit, that one?
Yeah, so he says the financial institution needs to be qualified somehow. If it's a financial institution, it's not FDIC. Does that not qualify?
I would think that would be qualified.
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't,
you could say a federally insured financial institution.
well, I was gonna ask, do we want to use some language like that?
No,
We don't want to say no. So could a financial institution be P?
it could be
Could be what?
a private citizen.
P.
Oh.
Say I've got an extra couple million hanging around. Yeah, I'll back you.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Backer. No, no.
Of course, Pete would not be an institution.
No.
It might need to be institutionalized.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. From a financial institution. So I appreciate his comments. I'm just not sure what's the problem with the way we have it.
I would say that should be insured, I think.
And
Because what you guys thinking if
Well,
somebody
building's
get,
gonna be insured.
So let me raise another question here. Is an irrevocable letter of credit sufficient? Because as we talked about the decommissioning, we wanted performance bonds to be the instrument to ensure that the finances are available.
that's a very good point.
Yeah.
That's a very good point.
Yeah, but that's different, with solar panels that only have a 25 year lifespan. It's totally different than a house that's gonna be there 100 years.
Well, and I don't think that we're talking about houses though. I mean, to me, we're talking about the sort of the infrastructure of the subdivision.
Yeah,
The houses,
the road, the ditching,
Yeah.
any utilities that the developer may be putting in.
because the reason for that is that if the, well, it says here, if the construction is essentially substandard, inadequate, it says, then the municipality may draw on that financial assurance to make it adequate.
Well, because you're making it impossible for the local person to do anything. I'm taking my experience firsthand. Stop build, just making it impossible for the local, and you're bringing in out.
Would a developer not be bonded?
No, not when I did mine. Wasn't bonded. I had family land. You know, you're taking away family land, the investment and all the money that people have in this property. You got, the more regulations and the more stuff you put on it, you're just taking that value right out of that property.
So should it be, should that be something that should be considered for a major subdivision versus a minor subdivision?
No,
Okay. Just raising.
mine's a major subdivision, and if I would have had gone through all this stuff I never would have been able to do it. And that's what, the more you're just drawing more and more out of the citizens. And
Well, and
you're taking advice from lawyers from New Jersey
and I understand,
and Belgrade, Maine.
I understand your point, Craig, and I think that's simply meant to ensure some protection for the community so that, if a street is properly constructed or as George said.
If it's a private road, private road. Right?
Yes, sir, you're right. about
Because
that.
if the town's gonna get their fingers that deep into it, then the town should take it over.
I see your point.
And I think,
With the tax dollars that the town's charging now, the taxes are going up. I mean, everything's just getting, so the local homegrown person that has family land, you guys are taking it all the value away from them because they can't afford to do it. So you're taking the value away from this local person and you're giving it to somebody from New Jersey that has money, that can come up here and buy it and do whatever they want, rather than the young. I'm just going through my personal experience.
I understand. But after the meeting, I will explain to you how much your tax dollars actually stay with the town of Belgrade. It's very little.
Oh, I know where the tax dollars go.
so we're just gonna keep this as is then? Just keep it as is?
Yeah, I'm okay with it because I think the liability to the town is far less than, say, with a solar farm or a telecommunication tower. The risk to the town is far less.
Yeah, I would say the risk to the town is far less. So we'll keep that as is.
Right, and in this case, it's optional. The town doesn't have to take over the subdivision. It can just, let the purchasers of the lot, sue the developer
Yeah,
if he skips town.
Okay, so one last point, I think this is an easy one. So now we're on page 93. That has to do with appeals. He says, does this provision add any further authority to the Board of Appeals? And if not, why is it needed? Well, you need something to address how someone appeals the decision of the town board.
that's the body.
That's boilerplate
Mhm.
stuff up there.
Yeah,
Agreed
And that's the last of this.
with his comments. So do we have any other written comments? Because I have some comments from Janet Townsend. She was one of the persons who was here for the informational meeting. She was sitting
is
at
she
that.
from Belgrade Lakes Association?
She is the president of the Messalon, Friends of Messalon.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
FOM. Friends of Messalonsky.
Who are we talking about? Not the one who said anonymous.
No.
No,
Yeah,
another
yeah.
person who was in the
Oh,
back.
I
Yeah, she was in the back.
saying she was.
Yep.
Lake Association.
Yeah, exactly. And part of that conversation that evening, talking about ways to incentive or have incentives for when there are subdivisions, so not regulations, but incentives, to be as lake smart as possible. So I spoke with her on the phone and said, geez, I don't know how we could, regulate that sort of thing, but I would like to bring it to the planning board. Is there any way to provide a remark? It would be toothless, and maybe that's not a good spot to do it, is in an ordinance, but to promote the idea that if people wanted to go to be Lake Smart, to contact like the Lake Smart coordinators in either the Friends of Maine group or the other group, so that if within that subdivision they wanted to do it, they could do it. I don't know.
I don't feel we could force them.
No, you could do that in the, if you want to pass a flyer out with the permit.
Yeah, I think that's an educational component.
Yeah. I mean, this ordinance is focused at the developer. So this ordinance has soil erosion control component to it. It has a stormwater component to it, and it has a phosphorus control component or mitigation component to it. But it doesn't per se regulate the individual homeowner that buys a lot in there, unless there's deed restrictions that are part and parcel of what we approve.
Right.
So, and my understanding of that voluntary program is that it's focused at the individual homeowner, not the developer. So it complements to what we're doing, but it isn't a replacement for.
Right.
And I agree. I'm not sure requiring it across the board is appropriate. Secondly, we don't know if Seven Lakes Alliance even has the capacity to undertake that level of work.
They do not. It took them several weeks for me for them to send someone to our tiny little camp to do it.
Okay, well then, as far as I'm concerned, that's the end of it.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. All right, well, thanks. I just want to make sure to bring it up because it was a concern that she had and that they were excited about having a way in to have incentives for people.
Yeah, the other thing about my understanding of that program too is it's an after the fact remedial program. It's intended for existing development, existing homes and camps, and rather than newly developed or ones prospectively developed.
Yeah, we had an undeveloped shoreline and a developer came in and had 6 lots on the shoreline. That's gonna be a wooded buffer to begin with, unless it was done in a field or something like that. But then it goes back to your thing about, it's not designed for people who, the lots that are already in compliance. It's for those that are grandfathered non-conforming lots.
So the Seven Lakes Alliance has a resource that if you want to get informed, you call them and they come to your house.
Yeah,
and
in my case, I think they're between staff people, so they actually ended up sending a volunteer.
So they go and access your property, basically.
Yes. But and so in that regard, George is absolutely right that what they're doing is remediation, essentially.
Yeah.
And they're simply making recommendations. Then it's up to the homeowner to actually do something with those recommendations.
Right.
Would be there any benefit into prompting them to create a 5 minutes, 10 minutes program where they highlight all the overviews of what the smart.
Yes, but I think Craig had an excellent suggestion. It's, I think, that information is best passed along to a flyer. Hey, you want to make sure your property is lake smart, here's some people you can contact.
Right.
Yeah, but my point is that can stay with the flyer. Where I was going with all this is that that's something that will not be probably covered now, but put it like a golden nugget where we can work this out with the Seventh Alliance, have them create this program over a year or two, Karen, and then maybe, I don't know, my thought would be that as a developer comes along, part of the finishing the application is saying, do you went through this, do you saw this video? Check it out.
Well, and again, it does impact individual property owners versus a developer. And so the landscaping is typically done by the homeowner, not by the developer. So that's essentially what we're talking about with Lake Smart. Is how you landscape your property to ensure it's not contributing to the degradation of water quality.
I mean, a similar kind of requirement that some towns have, but usually more urban ones, is prohibiting these chemical lawns, where, they just spray the bejesus out of the lawn with fertilizer and pesticides. And I don't see how we can do that any more than we can require, again, because it's the focus is on the individual homeowner.
Right.
rather than the developer.
And I do think the lake associations have been proactive about doing watershed surveys. I've been part of 2 of them now, where you go and assess properties, and then the property owner gets a report saying what the good, the bad, and the ugly of their property is as far as erosion control.
Yeah.
I'm gonna take this a little step higher. The more we protect our town and protect our waterways, the more our town, the more valuable our town is gonna be. So it's actually to this group to steer maybe the concept of educating the community some way. I don't know exactly what would be the right way to go about it, because these things have ownerships. Like you are the owner of your land, and you can do whatever you want with your land, so to speak. But the more we, I guess, communicate to the community that taking these extra steps is going to be beneficial for everybody.
Mhm.
And as the town is kept better and better and better, it's a better place to live.
I think part of that's just creating a culture. You know,
Yeah, that's right. That's what I'm getting at.
After we got our survey, I shared it with the rest of our condo associations, because I want to make sure I'm not running afoul of their rules.
Right.
And they were very appreciative that they said, hey, the officers want to talk about this a little bit more, because this could be beneficial to the entire
Community.
association. So
Yeah.
I think that's how you sort of get that ball rolling.
Exactly.
Yeah.
With some
Right.
positive
Agreed.
feedback.
Have it come from the grassroots.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Thanks. All right, well, thanks for that. So have we gone through all the comments?
One of the things, I think there's some things in my review that need some discussion on us, so that the particular issues can be put to bed. Things that I picked up that
Okay,
may be okay the way they are, but I think it's worthy of a little bit of discussion. And I think the best way or only way that we can do that is for me to go through the ordinance very quickly.
And we're going by this one now, the one with the revised page numbers and table of contents.
It's Anthony's. And by the way, I think you missed your calling. He did a great job putting the changes together, and maybe he should have been a clerk.
Oh, I missed my calling. I should have been a priest.
that changes everything.
Oh my God.
And I won't go over every little thing.
Okay.
Just the ones that I have questions on, but I am gonna have to, if I got tags on some of these, and some we've already addressed. Oh, this is one where you go to, well, it's page 12 on this one. And we talked about location and names. This is paragraph B2.
This is actually on page 13 of the correct copy.
Okay, thank you.
And maybe these things are already shown as a note here, but it says locations and names of existing and proposed streets. Well, if it's a minor subdivision, there's not going to be any streets there, so can't we get rid of that?
Yeah, no, I agree.
Oh, yeah. So,
Rich, in the notes that you gave me previously, said locations and names of existing and proposed streets, and you proposed striking and proposed. So
Right,
we know that.
right.
So that's what we're talking about right now.
Right.
Okay.
And I didn't look to see if you scratched it. Or,
I did.
Okay, all right.
Yep.
I just got a question, monuments. I remember, Craig, and we talked about this, that I think originally had granite post or something like that. We changed it, you know, I guess I wonder, do we define, I don't see it in here where monument is defined. And as long as, I guess, somebody puts up something that's typically surveyed, we don't have to worry about the definition of a monument.
So now Rich is referring to a note on page 14.
yeah.
Okay, so we went with just following state standards, but I don't know if we have a definition in there at the moment.
They do.
They do, okay.
Yeah, they do. Yeah. licensing board for surveyors.
All right. Oh, this is something we definitely need to discuss is it's Article 7, paragraph B. It's the first one, and there's 3 paragraphs. And I think George, he's looked at this and had a note. We've got confliction there, if that's the right word, on whether or not we have to have a public hearing, or we have the ability to have a public hearing. And I think the intent is that a public hearing is optional for the board, but there's paragraphs in here, it says we shall. And George suggested here to change paragraph G
It's on page 19, correct?
19.
Yeah.
Paragraph, subparagraph, small g. The planning board may hold a public hearing
On the
on the
minor.
application. When board decides.
Let's see. Board may hold a public hearing, when board decides would benefit decision-making process.
You have that, Anthony?
I
do. Sounds great.
All right. Let's see.
You know, so like, for example, the neighbors turn out in force and
Right.
that kind of thing.
Okay. And we have the same thing in Article 8. Is that where we just were?
So we were on 7.
Okay. Article 8, it also says the planning board on paragraph G shall hold a public hearing.
On the major.
Yes, I think we need to put the same kind of language there in paragraph G that we just did in the previous article.
Yeah, I don't disagree, Rich. I think it's good.
Well, the sentence before the board shall determine whether to hold a public hearing. So yeah, we need that wording in G.
So yeah, so it would now read the planning board may hold a public
Right.
Anthony,
Yeah.
I got, it's page 26 on mine, but it's, let's see. Subsection major subdivision preliminary plan, near page 26.
27.
It's
27.
on page 27.
Okay. Does page 27 show major subdivision preliminary plan as paragraph 3, or does it show it as paragraph?
Paragraph C.
C.
Yeah, well, it needs to be 3. That's one I picked up since I gave you the
Oh.
changes, because
Oh, I
mandatory
see.
subdivisions for major is number 2. So this one would be number 3, and then
Okay.
ones will change to A through whatever.
Okay.
And then
Good catch.
Good
the
name.
next,
Yeah.
the next one would be required subdivisions for which a waiver may be granted. That's paragraph 4 instead of D. And
Got ya.
1 becomes A, 2B, and stuff like that.
Good going, Rich.
Yeah. Okay. All right. We made it a third of the way through the ordinance. Okay.
Rich, can I stop you just for 1 second?
Yeah.
Because I think you missed something that you may want to address. That is back on page 19. paragraph D. You had a question about whether or not there's a reference in there to the ordinance.
Oh, well, we need to discuss it or go to it simply so that you know what ought to be in there if it's changed. What page you on?
Page 19. That reference to section 6.2.c.23.
Yeah, and what it should say is cross out my comments, but just make sure in paragraph D, subparagraph D, minor D, it says Article 6.2C23.
That's what we
That's
have.
what it says.
Pardon me?
That's what we have.
All right, okay.
Yeah, so it says in accordance with section 6.2.c.23.
Okay.
And you noted that, and so is that a reference to?
That's not
article?
anything to do with the plan, it's in here.
Oh, it's in the article.
Yeah, it's in the article,
Okay.
So section should be changed to article.
yes.
Yes. Okay.
Ah,
Okay.
okay.
On Article 9, we have the same conflict with the public hearing thing.
Yeah. Page 33.
Yes, I think I'm on 32, but that's the.
Yes, page 33.
It says, and maybe this isn't a conflict. I couldn't. Okay.
Yeah.
It says shall again, on paragraph H. The planning board shall hold a public hearing on the final subdivision plan. But yet, in paragraph B, it talks about if a public hearing is deemed necessary.
So shall should be the may.
Maybe
Yeah.
and add the language about this, it improves the decision making.
Yeah. Okay, well, we got a George note here. Oh, we got a blank, and I think we want to say, this is
Oh,
Article 11, subparagraph 2, or paragraph 2, submissions. We left out the number of copies, and I think we need to have that be 12 paper copies, 1 electronic copy. Are you where I am at, Anthony?
I'm not, where are we now?
I'm on page 41. It's actually the first page.
Oh, I see.
only
Yes, I got
page of Article 11.
Yes, I'm there.
12 paper and 1 electronic.
is 12 needed now?
Pardon me?
Is the number 12?
The only reason I
Oh, it's
suggested
number
that,
11. Did I say 12?
Yeah.
That's Article 11. Is
No.
The number of paper copies.
Oh, that's what it was earlier in here, I think.
yeah, that's it's consistent with what's required elsewhere in the ordinance. We
Okay,
change
so
it here, we should probably change it
understood.
elsewhere.
Yeah,
It's
understood.
easier to change this one.
Yeah. Agreed. Okay. But you get my question, right? Like,
Yeah,
do we really need 12? I mean,
well,
But that's-
and we don't if there's no public that needs a copy.
right.
So that's why it's that high.
Can I ask you a question?
Certainly.
When we conclude this final draft, would it be too cumbersome? Would we make the table of contents too cumbersome if we took the major paragraph or major titles of the sections of, say, mandatory requirements submitted, and if there's 4 paragraphs that we go paragraph 1, 2, 3, and 4, put page numbers on there. I find it hard to go through this.
No, I think that's a good idea. It'll make it easier to navigate for
Yeah,
people.
that's exactly.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Okay. Can we go to Article 13? I just want to make sure that in the first paragraph, small paragraph 1A,
So is that page 46?
Yes,
paragraph 1A, it talks about in accordance with design standards down at the bottom, for sidewalks below. And I don't know if I said this in the original draft to you, Anthony, but I think it would make more sense to say for sidewalks in Article 13(2) dot XIII below. So you're referencing where that provision is without having to go search for it.
okay, let me find it.
Page 46.
So the article, what page is the article that you're referencing? So I can make sure.
Well, it's 45 on the old draft, so it's
46 probably.
46 or something.
So the article,
It's in Article 13.
Article 13.
Yep.
Dot 2.
No, dot 1,
Oh, dot, okay.
right at the beginning.
I got you.
And it talks about accordance to the design standards for sidewalks. And Article 13 dot 2 dot XII below. So you're telling them where to go.
I understand that. I can't.
And you want to tell me where to go?
No, I just want to make sure I get it right. So I got Article 13 dot
2.
dot 2. Okay, let me start over. 13.2 dot
XXI. XII. It's essentially paragraph 13 or whatever.
Basically, you want to take out below and just add in Article 13.2.
Yeah, you can even leave the below in so that you know it's down below somewhere.
So just add
Yeah.
in Article 13.2 at the end of below.
But am I reading this? So when I look at Article 13, paragraph 2, it speaks to sufficient water.
Yeah, that's what I
Right,
have too,
right.
so.
How was that sidewalks?
Yeah.
I guess maybe I made a mistake.
Hang on.
No, I've got it right here. Article 13A.
Yeah. Yeah, I know, but when you go to 13.2, it's
Okay.
dot 2 is about
It
sufficient
says
water.
sufficient water. But I bet somewhere in 13,
There's something about
it's
sidewalks.
something about sidewalks. Stand by.
Yeah, let me, Anthony, let me just find out where that is rather than spend time here. And I'll let you know what that actually should be.
So 13.2.
It's about sufficient water.
Sufficient water.
There is a section on sidewalk.
Okay.
Um,
We'll get it. We'll get it.
Okay.
I had to comment on one thing, one confusing sentence. I think it is, but that's not something we need to too much worry about. We covered the next one. Okay, mine's page 53. It's about impact on natural beauty, aesthetics, historic sites.
Was this about the shorebird nesting?
Yes,
Okay.
I guess.
So this is on page 54.
A question I asked the board, it talks about critical spawning and nursery areas, and shorebird nesting and feeding and staging areas of seabird nesting. I don't think any of those things are in Belgrade or will be in Belgrade, and I think we could, unless there's some shorebird nesting areas. I know that we're not dealing with critical salmon areas because can't even make it up to past the dam and Messalonskee.
Well, let me ask you a question. Is a loon nest considered shorebird nesting?
I
Yeah.
don't believe so.
No?
I was thinking, the endangered black terns are though. Here in the wetland.
Okay,
So I would suggest just eliminating and seabird nesting islands.
okay.
Okay.
All right, yeah,
And then get rid of paragraph 4 below that.
no, I don't think we've got any critical spawning in areas for sea run salmon. Maybe we leave it in there and if they put a
That's the
couple of
ocean.
fishways in, maybe they'll be coming up. I don't know where they'd be, but
Right.
anyway, leave it there.
Well, if the ocean's rise enough that we have to,
Oh, God.
the subdivision ordinance will pretty much be moved at that.
Yeah. All we need is shoreline zoning.
Yeah, yeah. That's it.
The next page, I had a question on paragraph D. Any existing public rights of access to shoreline of a water body? I guess I had a question in my head is what is defined as a water body? Does this include, and does water body include a small stream? It might be 3 feet wide running through this subdivision. Or are we just talking about bigger water bodies? Talking about maintaining easements. Maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe no matter how small it is, if it's got a public easement there, it ought to stay there.
What page is that?
Well,
Page 55, Greg.
paragraph D, small d.
I'm not sure, you know how in the definition section, Charles references all the definitions in statute. I don't know if water bodies defined in that part of the statute that deals with subdivisions, but like in DEP statutes, water body is all waters of the state. So it would include a stream, something that meets the legal definition of a stream, in addition to lakes and et cetera. But I guess I generally agree with your earlier comment, Rich, that if there's a public right of way to a water body that.
There.
Okay.
ought to stay.
Yeah, I would agree if it's there.
Oh, here's one I couldn't, go to just turn the page now, I think. What it'll be is paragraph 3. 6, the paragraph is 6 something ending in paragraph 3. It says in combination,
On page 57.
57. In combination, the documents referenced in paragraph D shall provide for the following homeowners association. I couldn't find where they were referencing where paragraph D is. And I think we need to make sure that paragraph D is the right reference. Maybe you leave it to me again to figure out where paragraph D is. I didn't research it except for looking in the ordinance in my initial looking, didn't find it. So,
So,
Other than it's above.
right.
yeah, we got 55 pages to find it.
Yeah, we got 55 pages above.
Okay,
Yeah, that will be page 55.
On page 57.
Yeah, I think Sarah's saying that if we're talking about D,
Yeah, but that didn't seem to speak to what this
is about, right?
Mhm.
I'll see if I can find it, and I'll let Anthony know.
Okay. 2, 3,
We filled in the blanks. on
One,
what's
two.
in the road.
oh, reservation. Oh,
So Rich, you had a question on what is now page 66 about what,
66?
about what a horizon even means.
Oh, yeah, What does that mean? Anybody know? You mean the next year?
I don't know what a horizon year is. I do not know.
I think we ought to find out what it means before we go to town meeting with it, just so. We don't want to go in there with something we don't have an idea what it is. So again, I'll do a research and figure out what a horizon year means.
As you might guess so far, the quick Google searches have to do with a type of time reference.
So I'll read it to you. You want me to read? A horizon year means the last year of a 5-year protection period for needed determinations. So I guess the sample is first last year, or it can be a horizon year means the last year of a 3-year protection period for needed determinations for a new or expanded home health agency. Not quite.
So if you had a 5-year project, the horizon year would be the 5th year. If you had a 3-year project, the horizon year would be the 3rd year.
That's right.
That's what I'm gathering from it.
All right. So that's the answer.
So it'll be the last year of the project.
But we don't have time limits, do we?
No, I think we got rid of them.
Yeah. The only thing that's in is you got to start it within a year, right? But that was it.
So, so regardless of the period, it will be the last year of the project. The year that the subdivision is going to be finished.
Right. But we don't time box projects from our ordinance.
No, we don't give them a deadline by which they have to complete the subdivision.
Right. So therefore, without having a start and a date timeline that says they have to do it within, to me, this particular term does not apply.
Now, one of the reasons we did that was because, as Craig pointed out, you don't know how long it's going to take to sell the lots. But we might know, what the time frame of the developer is to develop the road. We may or may not, but but a lot of times we may not have a horizon here.
So this section has to do with the B, general access standards. And they're talking about access. So I'm kind of just wondering, how this term would even apply here.
Well, I'm wondering also, the paragraph before that, or those paragraphs before it, talks about the comprehensive plan has indicated that levels of service E or F are acceptable for that street and intersection. I don't think our comprehensive plan even has things such as level E or F, does it?
No.
Is it possible that maybe paragraph 3 did?
Well, those things 1, 2, and 3 are in place because it follows the word unless. So in the paragraph before, it says no subdivision shall reduce the level of service of streets or intersections to the subdivision to an LOS of E or below, unless 1, 2, and 3, and whatever else.
Yeah, so the fact that it references the comprehensive plan doesn't have that, doesn't matter.
Right.
So where are we?
Well,
Leave it the way it is. Or get rid of the horizon years?
I would leave horizon year as it is. It's rarely going to apply, but it could potentially apply. More often than not, it won't.
Yep.
And in terms of the section before that, I don't think we need to do anything with that either, because
Agreed.
Peter pointed out it's just kind of conditional.
Yep.
I do have a question, and maybe you're going to this next, Rich, is in little paragraph, paragraph little IV. There's a reference right in the middle of it. I don't know what that is. CMR, is that?
That's some kind of state code, isn't it? Sort of CMR.
So maybe I'm getting confused by the editing. Maybe.
Yeah. So what I did is I took out the spaces.
Okay. All right. So that's the deletion mark.
Yes.
Okay. Never mind. I got it.
Okay.
Okay.
Great.
I don't know what Anthony did with this. Or did I hear you say something? Okay. No. While you're looking at me, I thought I had heard a voice. I don't know what.
Hearing voices again.
It's subliminal
Huh?
messaging.
In this section 16, maybe yours is page 68, specific access and street design standards. There are some of these paragraphs that just, like paragraph 6, starts out minimum site distance standards, and then minimum site distance requirements. I'm wondering if we should underline or capitalize or something these beginning phrases.
I would suggest underlining them. It's a little easier to read than going from all caps to.
Elsewhere in the ordinance, you're just in bold.
Well, but those are specific. It looks like, well, I was going to say those look like sections, but not necessarily.
Right.
But this is sort of right in the middle of.
Right.
It's kind of, I'm not sure there are too many.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm off by one.
Yeah, so we're on page 69.
Yeah. What? No. Well, I'm off by one level of a paragraph.
So, yeah. So I would suggest underline those. I think it'll be like a little bit of a cleaner look.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would say as an editorial comment, if I were writing this ordinance, I wouldn't start with article Roman numeral. I would have this thing different than it is, but at this stage, we're not doing it. Okay, well, we got another one here, page 972.
Yeah, this is 73.
This one, again, let me just say it's not comp plan stuff, it's in this ordinance. And it should say article 13.5.
13.5.
15. I'm
Okay,
sorry.
all right.
13.15.
Yeah,
And then continue on from there. Point 1, point B, point 2.
well,
point
I
3.
doubt if it's a big B. What I can't tell from here is whether I just put article 13.15 with the intention that 1B, 2F get tagged onto it, or whether my intent was to just stop at 15. Let me look at that again too.
Okay.
There's now at least 2 things I've got to go back and check. All right.
You had a note on what is now page 75, Rich.
Is it the following land use density pattern
Yes.
requirements shall be required for the
Yes.
following land use zone? And I guess the question is, where are the following land use zones? I didn't find anywhere in this thing that talked about where these land use zones are. It's subparagraph small vi. 106.
Oh,
Either one.
because we say they're there, right? Then what the heck? We talked about, so the design. Is that referencing the stuff that's in the table?
I wonder
Well,
that.
that's what I was just looking at.
So the table, which up above says the design standards of table 13.15, blah, 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 blah. Is that what this is in reference to?
Maybe.
Land use density pattern requirement.
I don't see a table though that seems relevant. First one is minimum site distances. Is that what we're talking about?
Mhm.
But it doesn't, it just is based on posted speed limits.
Compatible with the traffic volume access threshold referenced in section.
13.16. Am I reading that right?
Yeah.
13, hang on. 13.16. 13. I don't see table 13.16.
No, that you're looking at that's article. So the table references 13-15-3, but I think that may be incorrect. That's regards street design. It looks like that.
But that is what we're talking
Oh,
about.
but yeah, that's right. The design standards.
When it says following land use zones, you would expect that to be right below it.
Right. The following land use density pattern requirements shall be required for the following land use zones. So
It's
what
almost like
zones?
something's
Like
missing.
that sentence, or maybe that sentence somehow got put in the place where it shouldn't be.
Well, and in Belgrade, we don't have different lot density. We have the minimum lot size ordinance, which defines lot density. It applies across all of town. So it's not like we have a designated urban area or let's say, we don't, in the village areas, we don't all, the minimum lot size ordinance doesn't make any distinction between it in terms of lot size and density
Right.
versus the West Road.
And the only land use zone that we have is the shoreline zone.
Right.
So is there a need to have any reference to?
I think that last sentence could be struck altogether.
Well, that's what I was
Yeah.
wondering.
So that paragraph could end with, let's see, to occur on the internal subdivision street and the land use type and lot density allowed in the land use zone, period, blank. Strike the whole last sentence.
Yeah.
Okay, let's do that.
Yeah, I don't see how the implementation of that particular table that's referenced, which is street design guidelines, will be negatively impacted by eliminating that sentence.
We're getting there.
And then Rich, it looks like your next note is the same reference as the previous one that we talked about the rural designation.
Yeah. Rural, I think, is fine.
It's just making sure that that citation is correct.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, the comp plan does designate areas of town as rural versus not rural.
But again, Anthony, let me get back to you on that one. But I don't want to waste people's time, but I gotta figure out that citation is good. Oh, I'm on page 86, it's a note. And I don't know whether we want to make that part of the ordinance officially or not, but we know that notes are not enforceable.
Yeah, this is on page 87 of the current.
Gotcha. Right,
It's under small paragraph B. So
Yeah.
private roads within a subdivision must have a minimum right of way of 60 feet unless the planning board, due to individual circumstances, determine that the necessary right of way to be less than or greater than 60 feet. It almost seems like that's a requirement,
Yeah,
and we ought to get rid of the note.
so if we get rid of the note,
Just get rid of the word note. Is that right?
Yeah,
right.
oh, I see, because what we do want to keep in here is that,
Is the regulation.
is the
It's the
regulation.
width of the right of way.
Yeah, okay. Because this is not a note, this is a regulation. Gotcha.
now the thing above it where it says C, I guess that is a note.
Yeah, that's just explanatory.
Yeah.
It's guidance.
Okay, good point.
Go to performance guarantees, Article 15.
Page 89.
We've got to come up with a couple of appendixes that maybe KB Cog has
Oh,
that are
okay.
part of the ordinance.
Yeah, so let me contact Joel about that.
It references Article B, I mean Appendix B, and there's an Appendix C. Later on. I don't know what they are, we don't have them.
So we know we have at least through C.
Yeah, so I think I can answer that. B, appendix B is a sample letter of credit,
Right.
and from the model ordinance. And what was the others? Anyway, there's a whole series of them, like sample storm drainage easement. They're all sample documents.
So
Is
appendix,
there an Appendix A in there?
There is,
So you have those, George?
I do, I have them right here in the model ordinance.
So that's a very old document that you guys are working off of.
Yeah, this is where we started from, and A is, what is A? A is long.
I'll tell you what, do you happen to have that in either word?
Oh, you know what A is? It's the definitions that are found in the statute,
Oh,
and we already have dealt with that in Article 3. And also, this is 10 years old, so some of these could have changed.
would it make sense though to have an Article A that shows the state definitions are as currently worded, so that the average individual who picks up this document doesn't have to go into some state statute to figure out what they are?
Maybe your point's well taken. It would be a matter of copying it from the statute and revising Article 3.
Do we need to revise Article 3, or do we simply say if this definition section in statute isn't very long, or whatever, we could
Well, you know, and one of the dangers of that though, is that,
If it changes.
that's right.
Yeah, I think that was Charles's.
Yes,
Yeah, okay, all right, I stand corrected. And I think that's it.
So the references to the appendices, if we eliminate A, then the cross references are going to be off by one.
So are you saying just do a search of the documents for appendix A, and just see if there's any reference, probably not, and then do it for appendix B and change B to A, C to B?
Yeah,
So do you have that document either in Word
I
or
do.
PDF form that you could just send to me?
Oh, no.
I just tried to look for it. I found 2006 model ordinance.
Yeah, this is the 2006. Charles, did Charles give this to us electronically?
What I'm gonna do though, I'm gonna ask Joel to send the appendices or the latest template.
Yeah.
And we'll just take, and then we'll just,
Okay.
That's the way to do it, because if he has something newer than 6, that would be good.
Yeah, I don't think he will because,
well, and if he doesn't, then we'll just use appendix B and C from the 2006 model.
Yeah. Rich, thanks so much. That was a lot of work to get, that you did to get us through that, so thank you.
It was a pleasure going through that.
You're a sick individual. All
Okay,
right,
so just a reminder of the timetable that you guys are on.
yeah, let's talk about that.
Craig still has some things.
Oh, wait,
Yes.
Craig has a couple of things too.
All right.
Thank you.
So Article 5, Section 3, so page 9.
Thank you.
Craig, which version are you working
I'm
on?
on the new one we just got.
Okay, thank you.
Minor subdivisions and major subdivisions. And under minor subdivisions will be limited to residential subdivisions only. There's a lot less impact subdivisions that can happen. Why is it gonna be limited to residential? So say if I wanted a woodlot and this elderly person's got a big chunk of land and he's already sold one, maybe 2 lots for residential, but there's a nice 2-lot acre of hardwood and I wanted it for a woodlot. What if it's in a field and I wanted to plant some apple trees on a couple acres? What if, so why is it gonna be limited? If you're subdividing land, why is it gonna be limited to residential?
Yeah. See your point. I think the intent was that it not be commercial.
Right, because if it were commercial,
Commercial,
So limited for non-commercial. I mean,
Non-commercial development.
residential or not, other non-commercial development.
is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so that will just read minor subdivisions will be limited to residential or non-commercial development.
So with an apple orchard, what would that be considered?
Is that agricultural
Yeah.
and is that commercial?
I would think under most circumstances it wouldn't be, but I suppose at the extreme, if somebody opened a really large, literally a commercial apple orchard for selling to
No, we're
Hanover.
talking small here because.
Oh, right. So no, it wouldn't. Yeah, right. That's not likely.
Okay, so that, I'm fine with that. All right, and some of this other stuff, some of the stuff I didn't quite understand, so bear with me. So what do you say about boiler terms or
Boilerplate,
boilerplate. All right,
which
that's the
is
same
a
thing.
template.
It's the same thing this person is. There's no section on the effective date formally adopted ordinance repeals, a date for when this repeals the old one.
Will it be effective as soon as the voters approve it?
Okay.
Right, but that needs to be addressed in the warrant article.
Yeah,
Right.
So then, so availability, so that'll be with that, but severability, if a certain part of this ordinance is ruled against, that it doesn't include the whole ordinance, only the section that's ruled against. Should be in there,
Oh, it's not.
according to this person, you can see it.
Oh,
So that doesn't, I'm just
well,
going.
then I
by-
wonder, is that something we should leave? Because this is gonna undergo a legal review.
Mhm.
before it
So
goes-
that's usually a severability clause.
Yeah, yeah, I just wonder if we should leave it to the attorneys to
Sure.
provide that.
Uh,
Well, this person, I will tell you, is part of the appeals board, so this is stuff that he picked up on.
Yeah,
And I'm sure you probably know.
that is pretty standard. I don't know. It's interesting.
That's what he said, it was just boilerplate.
Yeah, no,
Good
you're right
question.
about
And then the other one he had was conflict with other ordinances, but I thought I just saw that in there as we was going through, so I think that's in there.
So, Craig, did he email you these notes?
He only emailed me a couple of them, the rest was over the phone,
Oh,
so I was trying to jot stuff down. I'm not a legal
yeah,
reader, so.
I wonder if I just reached out to him and said, hey, you know, Craig shared some of these concerns, and it sounds like stuff that our attorneys can help us with when they conduct a legal review. Can you send me what your thoughts are so that I can pass those along to the attorney?
I can ask him.
Okay. And if you're comfortable doing that, just have him either email to you or email to me, and
Mhm.
we'll make sure the attorneys get it. That all sounds like just very
Yeah, there was all,
legal.
the major thing that I saw, that I was concerned with is what he brought up about residential.
Mm.
And, because we should be able to subdivide land and not make it residential.
that. Right.
Good point. I hadn't thought of it that way. That's good.
That it, Craig?
Yep.
Okay.
Want this?
Thank you. Excellent.
So just a reminder of the timeline, you folks next meet on October 2nd. You have got to approve the ordinance at that time.
Must.
Yes, because it will then go to the select board for their consideration on December the 7th. So you might want to mark your calendars. I bet they appreciate some of you at least attending. You're welcome to do that here in person.
I actually have one item, it's minor, that I found while I was going through Mr.
Greenberg or something like that.
Feinberg.
Feinberg, excuse me. And it's like probably on page 87 of the new version. In the stormwater management. Or just above it. So yeah, so it's on page 87 of the new version. And we've already dealt with the one above it regarding the note. But in the last one, D, that currently reads, where private roads intersect with public roads, grades as safe distance must be maintained in a safe manner. Oh, I'm sorry, wrong one. And the one above it, which is C, all subdivisions must have an adequate turnaround as determined by the planning board. Again, that's one of those things that's kind of vague, and so it leaves it up for a lot of interpretation by us who don't really know much about this.
We could, it's interesting that you mentioned that, George, because Dan McKenzie asked me about that just the other day. So maybe we should just have him give us.
Well, that's exactly what I was going to suggest, adding that with input from the Belgrade Fire Department.
Okay.
So no, they're not a big fan of cul-de-sacs, which are the reasons to, so they can pull in, back up and go.
Right,
Because the fire trucks are so hard to get around.
Yeah,
the cul-de-sac.
right. Yeah, that's
Some
what
of them
happened
too
in East
small.
West Estates next door to me.
Doesn't our current one have the reference to the T?
Yeah,
But the
There is.
model does not?
apparently not.
There was a
Okay.
reference to a T turnaround because when Dan asked about it, I did a search, but I didn't put a hyphen in turnaround.
Yeah.
And so there was a reference somewhere to that.
I thought so, but.
So George, you're suggesting all subdivisions must have an adequate turnaround as determined by the Belgrade Fire Department?
But by the planning board with input from the Belgrade
Oh,
Fire
I
Department.
see.
So if they want a T, they get a T. If they, something else works.
So be it. They are the experts. So timeline is still final for us is on December 2, right? And so that'd be great for us to have that ready so that then it can be ready for the select persons on December 7, which is really fun. Do we know? And then, do we know about voting? Bringing it to the voters
Yeah, so it will be part of the town meeting.
in March? Okay,
March,
that, good.
Which will be part of the referendum. Well, in fact, the whole town meeting. is gonna be by referendum.
Okay,
You know, the second, it should really be us just seeing what the edits you made
Yeah,
and,
you'll get that well in advance of the second, so.
yeah.
What I'll do is I will track those so that you can, and I'll send it out Word and PDF. So that everyone can take a look at those and make sure they're comfortable with it.
so then do we want to talk about commercial development review ordinance stuff? We've already been here 2 hours and 20 minutes, you know that, but you know, we do have more work to do on that, right?
We've got a shitload of work to do on it.
We have our.
What are you doing? What are you talking about?
Yeah. And I think planning on, right now, we have no permit applications in front of us.
We have received one thus far,
What we did.
but this has got to be a priority. So what Peter and I talked about after last night's solar farm meeting is, once you guys approve the subdivision ordinance, each meeting beginning with an hour at least work on the amendments to the commercial development review, just to make that a priority.
Can we do that? Can we do an hour?
We have to.
Yeah,
I mean,
I really do, you know.
I mean, the
get it done.
deadline now is May 5th. Well, it's shorter than that because there has to be a special town meeting before May 5th. So that the new revisions to the commercial development review ordinance are adopted before the moratorium runs out.
Yeah. Perhaps. So the moratorium could be extended by.
It could be extended,
by a
but
vote of the select board.
I mean, as I mentioned to you, Anthony, it'd be helpful to get a similar timeline to what's already been produced.
Yeah.
Mary, or you produced for
Well,
us.
I mean, in that instance, George, a special town meeting only needs 7 days notice. And so it's sort of a quicker turnaround once it's finished.
Right.
To getting it to the voters.
Right.
Because in a special town meeting, that would involve, a hand vote versus a ballot.
Right. Maybe the select board doesn't want to do a special town meeting, but because of the cost, but
Well,
I'm just saying we should know what our milestones are.
Absolutely.
So that we can track our progress against those milestones.
Yeah.
well, and I sent a note to the select board because Peter and I talked about this last night. If the goal is to have as many voters as possible weigh in on this, then you should have the election during the November 2022 election, because there'll be a gubernatorial race that will be high turnout.
Yeah.
race.
Well, and that would obviously dictate for, you know, another moratorium.
If the goal was to get it done sooner than that, I mean, the benefit of having a special town meeting would be that, and Peter, again, Peter and I talked about this last night. My concern is that if people vote against this, thinking that that will keep solar farms out of Belgrade, that's a danger. So during a special town meeting, you could explain, listen, if you vote against this, we're going to have less regulation of solar farms. So please don't misunderstand. This is not a vote on whether or not we're going to have solar farms or not.
Right.
It's a vote on how vigorously we're going to regulate. And that's more easily explained, obviously, in a special town meeting.
And do we get feedback from the select persons about their desire?
No, I just sent that off today, Peter, so.
So, yeah, I didn't expect we would get something back first.
Yeah. I was just making the assumption the select board wanted us to, you know, really start humping on this.
Well, and I think that's why we should make it a priority, and every meeting begins with, I mean, the next meeting, it should begin with voting on this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then the next hour after that should be, and then I haven't even really looked at the application all that closely to see how involved it is. But yeah, that's gotta be priority.
What kind of application is it?
I think it's a shoreline application.
You provided
I'm
us
sure
with
it is a shoreline.
a rewrite of the decommissioning language
Yes.
for us. And the only comment I had about this was how are we going to have the same decommissioning language for telecommunication towers and wind towers as we are for solar farms, or something very similar?
Yeah, so the model ordinances that we got from KB Cog, the decommissioning language for wind turbines and solar, very, very similar.
Right.
Different for telecommunication towers, or whatever that's worth.
Okay.
So I'm looking at what you sent. I had the question, and I found, based on this conversation, I think my original thinking was wrong. We're not creating, and we're not going to go create an ordinance for wind towers and an ordinance for telecommunications, whatever. It's still all going to be combined into one.
Well, so we already have sections in the commercial development review ordinance that speak to wind turbines and to telecommunication towers. So just my own opinion, you guys are free to disagree. I think it'd just be cleaner just to propose an amendment for decommissioning within those sections of the ordinance. And then we create a whole other section of the ordinance that speaks to the totality of the regulation of solar arrays.
So in that case, we'd have a commercial development review ordinance that would speak to all those three things, three different sectors, each with some sort of decommissioning language and regulatory stuff.
That would eliminate a lot of redundancy because
Yeah.
a lot of the standards we already have, like protecting significant wildlife habitat, stormwater, phosphorus control, don't have to be repeated 3 times in 3 new ordinances.
Right.
And we can just build on those in terms of adding whatever appropriate specific standards are needed for a solar farm or for additional. I mean, we already have a section on wind and telecommunications.
Well, and as you folks pointed out at your last meeting, you want a different standard for cell towers, a review of the decommissioning cost every 5 years versus every 3 years for solar.
Are we still operating on the premise that we're going to finish the decommissioning first and then go back to the beginning? Like next time, start on the siting, construction, design, operational standards?
I mean, I just figured, George, since you're already sort of knee deep into decommissioning, just go ahead and knock that out.
Right.
And then, like you said, go back and tick your way through the other issues.
That would be my thinking.
Yeah, I mean, what you've already produced looks fine to me. It's just the meshing or parsing out the three different types of facilities.
Yeah.
Yep. The only thing I would add that I thought of was on page 2 under after little 3, little triple I. This seemed to me another requirement for the decommissioning plan should be, this could be like little IV, the time frame within which the decommissioning shall be completed.
Oh, so it just doesn't languish, like say,
Yeah,
if you're decommissioning it, well, then get after it and do it. Don't just say it's gonna happen and.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah, so we have something to enforce.
makes good sense.
So you're suggesting a new paragraph 4
Right,
that speaks to the time frame
right.
for completion. You want me to get Joel's opinion on that, or see if there's a standard, or do you guys have?
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I suppose it could be written, but no less than X years. But I don't know what X years is realistic.
Okay. Well, I'll see if Joel knows if there's some sort of industry standard.
That's fine.
What's that, Craig?
I don't think I'd want it plural.
Yeah.
I was a year.
And then lastly, I mean, we've still got this. So is everyone good with the changes that George has proposed? Because what we could do is also on December the 7th, ask the planning board to approve this proposed ordinance change regarding phosphorus control.
So what, that was just going back to state standards, right?
That's correct.
The correct standards. by the way.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Right. 'Cause- Yeah, so yes, I would be in favor of referencing the correct standards.
And that's all it is, it's just changing the standards that we have that are outdated to the updated state standards.
Correct.
And we have to be there regardless, you know, it's correct.
Yeah,
And
right.
there's nothing additional other than the state standards in them.
No,
So Rich, were you gonna ask a question about what Anthony said? Because he said planning board.
I think I answered it.
You did? Okay.
Answered it in the discussion.
Okay,
So at the next meeting, then you guys will need to formally approve this as well, so we can take it to the select board.
Yeah.
On December the 7th.
Got a quick question here. We only have one application for solar farms so far.
From Steve Bushbaum.
That's the only one we have. There's nothing happening in Route 8, isn't it?
No, so that meeting last night was simply to, it's a requirement as part of the DEP permitting process, and they are planning on, they hope to present an application to the DEP by the end of the month. But they did note that there's a backlog of applications at DEP, and that is a long and laborious process in front of the DEP. We've still got our moratorium in place, so they have not, since they have to get their DEP permit before they came to us. And then there'd be a whole process here with the town, so.
Well, it seems to me that they need to get their ducks in a little straighter row than what they have them, because they have misinformation, don't they?
Yeah,
As far as
so,
properties,
yeah, so one of the property owners that I think you spoke to and I spoke to said, I told them for 2 years, I'm not interested. And at least on the maps, it looked like that was a pretty critical piece of their plan. So I'm not sure how they're planning on navigating that. And I mentioned this to the consultant last night after the meeting. I didn't want to throw her under the bus during the meeting. And, you know, she's not the developer, so she didn't know anything about it, but she was surprised when I told her that.
Who's the consultant for this project?
Oh, I have to go and look.
In
back.
state, out of state?
I think
They're in
the
state.
Instead, yeah.
Yeah.
The developer is from Virginia.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then they're in-state, and then the sub is,
Do you sense that she knew they had to come to the town for a permit? This wasn't
Oh, yeah.
a surprise?
Oh, yes.
absolutely. She
And-
mentioned that to the people in attendance.
Yeah.
She mentioned the process going to DEP would be first, as like the first phase of stuff. Should that pass there, then they're expecting to then present it to the town.
Yeah.
So in answer to your question, the town has no application for a solar farm. This thing from last night was just part of the overall process, saying, hey, be aware, we're thinking about this thing, and we're gonna present stuff to DEP.
Yeah, they're at the very beginning of that. So what would be a very long process.
But Steve's is approved, isn't it?
Yeah, we have one approved.
So Steve doesn't have to wait for the moratorium.
Well, he's engaged in a competitive process with the PUC, right, George?
Yeah.
And so he's waiting to see if he's awarded whatever,
The contract.
the contract by the PUC.
So it's a competitive process, basically.
Yeah.
So he's competing against other proposals for solar farms. That's
It
what he
was
said.
interesting. I'm sorry.
No, I'm all right.
I was gonna say, it was interesting that planted some trees and stuff since that meeting. Some of them aren't in very good shape, but, you know, I guess it showed me that he has at least some good intentions on this project as it goes through.
Towards the mains property,
Right along the road.
the road,
On
okay.
each side of there's some existing fir trees and stuff left over, I think, from Skip Ammon's operation. And on each side, pretty bare trees. At the time of the application, I indicated that my biggest concern was lack of screening along the road. So
Yeah.
within a month, there were trees planted in there, most of which are still growing. But
I don't know, maybe the difference between someone who's invested in the community versus not.
So Anthony, at our next meeting, what should we prepare for in terms of our discussion about the next step or the next phase of the solar and
So I would say, so now that we know that we want to separate solar, the decommissioning language for solar, wind, and cell towers, I'll do that. Bring a proposal to you to look at, make whatever changes that you might want to with that. And I can tell you the first step to then getting the.
is Joel going to be at the next meeting? Or
I'm sorry.
is Joel going to be at our next meeting?
I don't anticipate. So Joel right now is a one-man show for KB Cog.
Really,
They anticipate having a new planner come on board December 1, but he's a little overwhelmed right now. So, so what I would prefer to do is, you know, let's work off the templates that he's given us, and from time to time, they can send those to him and say, are we on the right track here? And if not, he can come to a meeting and tell us
Okay.
where we're off base.
The reason I ask is I have some thoughts on where in town these kinds of facilities, solar in particular, should not be, and tying it to the comprehensive plan would be helpful in terms of moving the ball. If I draft those up and gave them to you so you could include it in the packet for everybody to review and then discuss.
that would be great. Because I know last night there was some talk, actually, one of the residents talked about optimal places to have stuff based on some industry, I'm gonna say standards, and some way less than optimal places. So that notion was brought up in public last night.
Like the decommissioned landfill.
Yeah.
Good.
Great,
Yeah,
Gravel pit. Good.
good. Forest,
Not so
not
good.
good.
well, and there's forest and then there's forest, so, you know, you can parse that apart too.
Sure, sure.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Peter, but you know, I think the main sentiment is, I don't think that people are necessarily opposed to solar farms. They're opposed to looking at them.
Yeah. Be concerned about what's gonna happen in 20 years.
Well, and I mean, I think you guys are already on the right track. I mean, you've already proposed some things or talked about some things that are going to be more stringent than the state standards. And when I have explained those things to people, people are going, yeah, right on.
I don't know if that's inaccurate.
Really? How so?
Because it's just not looking at them. I don't, you know, I don't want to look at them. That's main number one. But number two is they probably won't even pay for themselves. They don't manufacture enough electricity to warrant what we're doing to our landscape. So Maine's going to this green energy push. So they're trying to put this big corridor down through to bring hydro to Massachusetts. And then so we're ripping apart the North Woods. Well, there's 49 windmill sites approved along that corridor. So first step's corridor, second step will be boom, windmills. And now we're taking all of our farms, all of our open space, and we're throwing these solar panels that aren't even gonna, you know, they got a 20 to 25 year lifespan, and they're not gonna help us out that much, minimal. And so what we're doing is ripping apart the main landscape for green energy. We're cutting off tops of mountains for windmills. We're farmers. I mean, there's this another farm, coal farm in Sydney. I know those guys, but they just shut down last week. You know, there's probably solar panels going on that farm because they can't sell their milk. So, you know, it's just not looking at them. They're ripping apart the state of Maine's landscape with all this green energy and all these lithium batteries. So now they just found all that lithium in Byron. And sure, they can't mine right now, but there's a ton of it there. You're not telling me in 20 years they're not going to be mining that lithium if they continue. So it's just not a matter of looking at them. It's ripping apart our state. That's the feeling of a lot of people. A little value. The windmills, they don't pay for themselves. You know, they're the same thing. They have a short lifespan, and they're, you know, they're dripping oil and cutting off mountaintops and for very little return. You know, if you want to go to an energy to get return out of energy without destroying the landscape, then fine and dandy. Let's do some nuclear power or something. Something we get some bang for the buck.
Brad, you opening a can of worms. You don't want to hear. You don't want to hear me.
But to rip apart the state for green energy, you're ripping apart the state and you're saying it's green energy.
Jeez.
You're ripping apart the state.
Don't talk about nuclear energy, Greg.
Come up with a better plan.
I can hear you and feel you on the green energy part.
So,
Nuclear energy, no.
you still have one last item of business. That's
Yes.
for a few minutes.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
The last page, I think.
I put my laptop away.
Anthony,
Yeah.
why do we have the mooring ordinance, just so we have a copy of it?
I'm not sure why that's in there. I probably was it says something that I'm not sure why it's in there. But you're welcome.
Merry Christmas.
I think it's something we don't have. We may not be the one administering it, but we might.
I hope not.
Yeah. I don't know if I have it.
I don't see any minutes. I don't think that's our more.
Yeah, no, I got them.
Yeah, they're in the,
For October 21st, November 4th.
the gift package we had on the desk?
No, those were, that was just the, so this was in your.
Here, if you need to look at
So it was in the meeting package.
Thanks, and Sarah. Thank you.
I don't think I got a meeting.
Oh, you know what? Probably still in the back.
You see, Gates notes, Greg? Are you in tune with Gates notes? Bill Gates have figured out how to make the perfect nuclear plant.
So you got 2 minutes right there. There are minutes in the back of this.
Thank you very much.
You gotta check that out.
Excuse me.
Oh, thanks.
Thank you.
No, you're welcome.
You picked up this package.
I'm all set.
One Rich is my favorite.
Good choice.
Very smart.
Nice job.
Almost there, is what I do.
Okay. So has everybody had a chance to go through the minutes? So can we take them in order? So first, October 21st minutes. Are there any edits for the October 21st minutes? Does anybody have anything? No. So do you want to do both at once, or do you want to do? I'd be happy if you are. You want to do them?
Comments on the second one?
That's a good question.
I do.
Okay. All right.
Oh, okay. Well, first off, in terms of people attending, is that list really accurate? I mean, I couldn't see who was online, but it misses Carol Johnson, first off. And then there are people like Charlie Bader and Steve Bucksbaum and Dick Bourne and the Nick Alexander. I just don't know if they were on all, or they're just a list of attendees or what, because I don't remember. Certainly they didn't speak up, and I don't know, they weren't in the room. And it's just a question of were they on Zoom?
Yes,
They were.
yes.
Okay, well then my only comment is that Carol Johnson's missing.
I do see a Carol Dunson. I wonder if that's supposed to be Carol.
Oh,
Johnson.
I bet you're right.
That's it.
I suspect that's
That's it.
what it's supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
The George, that was your
God,
comment?
George, incredible.
The other thing I had is under new business A, 1, 2, 3 lines down. This is speaking about Mr. Wood's suggestion. His suggestion was to change 6 acres to 7 acres. After change, I would add minor subdivisions from 6 acres to 7 acres.
Right.
And then on the second page, C, regarding the discussion of the converting the barn to apartments, the multifamily.
Mhm.
We really should have the name of the of the folks speaking as well as their engineer.
Yeah.
I unfortunately don't know their names, but
It should have been Wendell, I believe. Wendell.
Yeah.
Yeah, he-
It's got their present on the attendee.
Right, because they did
Ben somebody.
Dave
Isn't
Wendell.
it the-
I think she may be on here, but he wasn't on the list.
Dave Wendell.
Yeah,
Dave Wendell?
yeah.
And her name was, I don't know, he's not on there yet. I don't think.
And the engineer isn't either, right?
Correct.
He was from,
Al Hodgson.
Right. And we asked, remember, because when he left, we said, please give Al our best.
His name was Ben.
I think so. Ben something.
Yeah.
Hold on, let me look real quick. I've met him before. I can't.
Yeah, well, he's been before us before.
He has.
Yeah.
And it's not something simple like Dow, is it? Like Ben Dow or Ben?
Anyway.
Anyway, we
The
should be on
names of
there.
the
Yeah.
folks
Okay,
presenting should be. Or what?
thank you for those edits. Does anybody else have any other edits? I don't either. So Anthony, thank you so much for the notes that you've taken. They're clearly in great shape. So thank you. So we've got 2 minutes, one from the 21st and one from November 4th. So do you want to do a motion for them both or all at once? If so, I'd take a motion. I'd entertain a motion.
I will make a motion to approve minutes from November, from October 21st without any new revision, no additions to it, and approve the November 4th one with the changes and suggestions that we place forward.
Okay,
I'll second.
and seconded. Any more discussion? All those in favor? So roll call. Craig?
Yes.
Yeah. Sarah?
Yes,
Yes. George?
Yes.
Yes.
Rich? Yes. And
Uh-oh, Jump the gun.
and I am in favor. So 5 in favor, none opposed.
So that engineer's name is Ben Murray, Murray.
Murray, thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, so we've approved the minutes. Anything else? Any other town business for us that you care to share? Anthony? Any other?
I'm hungry.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
bet. Yeah,
I
okay.
motion to adjourn.
I thought you were
All
gonna
those
say.
in
motion to
favor?
eat.
All in favor, 5 in
Yeah.
favor. Thank you, everybody. Thanks, we're in good shape. All right, so. Let's